From American dominance to China's rise, the new global trade order.
For decades, global trade largely revolved around the United States. The US dollar was the backbone of international commerce. Most countries priced oil, commodities, and major contracts in dollars. American banks, institutions, and corporations played a central role in shaping the global economy. American companies dominated key industries like technology, finance, entertainment, and defense, giving the United States enormous influence over markets and supply chains. At the same time, major shipping routes, trade agreements, and economic rules were closely aligned with U.S. interests. If the United States wanted to impose sanctions, it could isolate countries from the global financial system. If it wanted to strengthen alliances, it could open markets, offer investment, or provide favorable trade deals. In many ways, economic power and political power were tightly connected. But this system is now being challenged, and China is at the center of that shift.
How China built the world's most powerful manufacturing system.
One of China's greatest strengths is its manufacturing system. Over the past few decades, China has built the most powerful production network in the world. Almost everything we use in our daily lives, smartphones, computers, household electronics, clothing, furniture, cars, industrial machines, medical equipment, and even the components inside many Western products, is either made in China or relies on Chinese parts. China did not become the world's factory by chance. This was a long-term national strategy. The government invested massively in modern infrastructure, high-speed rail, ports, highways, energy grids, and industrial cities. At the same time, they focused on education, technical training, and engineering skills to build a highly capable workforce. While many Western countries were outsourcing factories, reducing industrial jobs, and shifting toward finance and services, China was doing the opposite. It was expanding its factories, modernizing production, and developing advanced technologies like robotics, automation, and AI-driven manufacturing. As a result, China now controls entire supply chains, from raw materials to final products, giving it unmatched economic and industrial power on the global stage.
China's Belt and Road Strategy, building power beyond the United States.
China launched what it calls the Belt and Road Initiative, one of the largest infrastructure and economic projects in modern history. Through this program, Beijing began financing and building ports, railways, highways, bridges, pipelines, and digital networks across Asia, Africa, the Middle East, and parts of Europe. For many developing nations, this was an attractive alternative to Western institutions like the World Bank or IMF, which often imposed strict conditions or refused funding altogether. China arrived quickly, offering loans, investment, and large-scale construction in exchange for long-term partnerships. As new trade routes took shape, China did more than just build infrastructure. It built influence. By connecting countries to Chinese markets, technology, and supply chains, Beijing steadily expanded its economic reach and secured reliable trading partners. This strategy has helped position China at the center of a growing global network that increasingly operates outside traditional US-led systems.
De-dollarization, how the world is slowly moving beyond US financial control.
Another major shift reshaping the global economy is the gradual move away from exclusive reliance on the US dollar. For decades, the dollar functioned as the primary currency for international trade, finance, and reserves, giving Washington enormous leverage over global markets. Now, however, a growing number of countries are exploring alternatives. Nations such as China, Russia, India, Brazil, and others have begun conducting more trade in their own national currencies or through new financial systems that bypass the US-controlled banking network. This shift does not mean the US dollar is collapsing or disappearing from the world stage. It remains the most widely used reserve currency. But it does signal a slow erosion of America's economic dominance and its ability to unilaterally influence global trade through financial power alone. As more countries diversify away from the dollar, the international system is becoming less centered on Washington and more multipolar.
How America lost its factory power and became dependent on imports.
The United States has been facing its own economic challenges: rising inflation, deep political divisions, and ongoing supply chain disruptions. These problems have made it harder for American industries to operate smoothly and remain competitive. Over the years, many U.S. companies chose to move production overseas in search of cheaper labor and higher profits. While this lowered costs in the short term, it gradually weakened America's domestic manufacturing base. Instead of investing in new factories and industrial jobs at home, the United States became increasingly dependent on imports, especially from China, for everyday goods, technology, and critical components.
From one superpower to many, how the world is being reshaped.
If China continues growing at this pace, the global balance of power could gradually move away from the United States. Instead of one dominant superpower, we may be entering an era with several major economic powers competing and cooperating at the same time. This shift could reshape international politics, rewrite trade agreements, and redefine how countries interact with each other. Nations may begin aligning more with China, the US, or forming independent blocs of their own. Even military alliances, security strategies, and global institutions could change as countries adjust to a more multipolar world, where power is more spread out and influence is no longer controlled by just one nation.
China versus America, the battle for economic supremacy and control of global trade.
So is China becoming more powerful than the United States in trade? The answer is yes. Not suddenly, but steadily, year after year. China is expanding its influence through manufacturing, technology, infrastructure, and global partnerships, while the United States struggles with internal challenges and shifting priorities. But the real question isn't simply who comes out on top. What truly matters is how this new balance of power will reshape our world, our jobs, our economies, our politics, and our future opportunities. We may be witnessing the end of one era and the beginning of another. So what do you think? Will China replace the United States as the world's top economic power? Or will both nations share that role in a new multipolar world?